Hello, wealth builder entrepreneurs. I wanted to take a moment to do a quick video as we are getting ready to wind down this stay home, stay safe executive orders. What are some good practices that we can do as entrepreneurs moving forward from a financial perspective? And so I wanted to share something with you in terms of building your business for financial success. All of us, we've probably taken some type of business courses in that, or taken an accounting class. And we always learned that the formula was revenue minus expenses equal profits. And I have actually been following a different methodology, and I'd like to share that with you. It's actually a methodology that I got from this book called The Profit First. And if you're an entrepreneur, I recommend that you invest in this book. It's very powerful, by Mike Michalowicz. And so as I began to apply some of those methods to my business, when we reached this season of having to shut down our businesses, because I had applied these practices, I was able to survive quite nicely through this stay home, stay safe order. And so one of the things that the book talks about, when we talk about a different methodology, it goes over the concept of not what we've been taught historically of revenue minus expenses equal profits, but rather the real formula is revenue minus profits equal expenses. And so essentially what that's saying is making profits a priority in your business, paying yourself a priority in your business. And it's no different than when you think of it from a standpoint of your personal finances. We've always been taught, pay yourself first. Well, for business, what we're talking about is pay your business first. Okay? And so depending on where you land from a revenue perspective, the book goes over recommendations in terms of how you should be, what percentage of profit you should be setting aside. And so what it talks about is you do a percentage to profits, you do a percentage to compensation. How many of us have heard the first few years of your business you're not going to make any money, or you're not going to make a profit? This dispels all of that, because you start off with profits being your priority. So you're going to pay your company, you're going to pay yourself, you're going to set money aside to pay your taxes. Extremely important. A lot of businesses get in trouble for not paying their taxes or their estimated taxes on the quarterly basis. So that's something that you want to set aside. One of the things that I decided to do was, as many of us know, the banks are not really paying any interest. So while you're setting this money aside, your money is not really making anything. But there are a lot of alternatives out there, online banks that are paying, not a lot, but some. So when you're setting that money aside for your taxes, put it in an account that you can't get to. Put your profits in an account that you can't get to easily. And that's paying some type of interest rate. That way, while that money is being set aside, it's also making money, and that's what we want to do. So you set that up. You set up a profit account. You set up a tax account. And then you have your income account, or what I like to call it, your operational account, where you pay all of your overhead costs. And then whatever is remaining is what you have for expenses. So oftentimes when we go into business, we are seeing, how much is this going to cost? We're automatically going into the expenses first. And then we'll say to ourselves, okay, I have to make at least this amount of money to cover my expenses. I want you to change your mindset on that. And I want you to say, I have to make at least this amount of money to make the profits that I want to make. I tell you, if you take on that methodology, it's really going to change your world in terms of positioning your company for financial success. So as we're in this season, if having that money set aside to sustain you, while business may be slow, okay? Or maybe you have to pivot your business in another direction. One thing we know about being entrepreneurs, we're constantly having to change and to pivot. And sometimes it takes a while or it takes a minute for that pivot for us to see the revenue from that pivot. And so we have to have some reserves to time to sustain us while we're going through that transition. And so if you apply these methods of setting aside the profit, paying yourself, and setting aside your taxes, and whatever you set aside in taxes, you may not have to utilize all of that tax money. You're just setting a reserve. And so whatever you have left, if you don't have to send it in taxes, then guess what? You can put that money in your profit account, okay? What I also love, what the book goes over, is taking a profit distribution on a quarterly basis. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Taking a profit distribution. So at the end of the quarter, and this is another thing, it is causing you to examine where you are at the end of every quarter. What changes have you made? What expenses have you been able to reduce? It's when you are implementing this program into an existing business, it's not as easy to apply the percentages right off. You have to do it in incremental phases. And so you may only be able to do 1%, 2% at the beginning because your expenses are there's a disparity between what you're making in your revenue and what you're paying in your expenses. And so you may have to do things in small segments. 1% for the profit, maybe 1% for your compensation. But in terms of the taxes, you do want to make sure that you're putting whatever the recommended percentage is based on the revenue that you're bringing in, so that you know that you don't have any stress when it comes to paying those taxes at the end of the tax year, if any are due. So by following those recommendations, what you'll find, and another thing that the book talks about, which I absolutely love, is you do this twice a month. You can pick the days. The book recommends the 10th and the 24th, but you can pick the days that you like. But the whole purpose is to go through the exercise of at least twice a month. At least twice a month, you're going to set profits aside. You're going to pay yourself. You're going to set your taxes aside, and you're going to pay your expenses. Some may get paid on the 10th. Some may get paid on the 24th. There are a lot of things in the book, a lot of information there. I didn't adopt everything that was recommended, but the biggest thing that I would want you to take away from the book itself is the methodology of making profits a priority, having that reserve set aside. As we've been in this season of COVID-19, there are a lot of companies that are suffering. Not, small businesses, larger companies, and some companies present themselves, when you look at them, you think they're this big corporation that's doing so great. But all it takes is to go a month, 2 months without having that revenue coming in, and you're in trouble. But you know what? Just like we've been taught from a personal financial standpoint, we've always been taught at least have 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside in the event that you have to stop working. Be it you lose a job, or you get ill, whatever the case may be, you have a reserve set aside that you can pay your expenses while you're not bringing revenue or income in. The same practice should be adopted to business. You know, every quarter, look at what are my expenses? How much should I have set aside in reserve that should there's a sudden stop of revenue coming in, I still can pay my employees. Guess what? If you had that set aside, you may not have had to apply for any type of loans. You know, I know with the CARES package, there was the Paycheck Protection Loan, which there is a forgivable piece to that as long as you're using 75% of the money that you receive to go towards paying your employees. So that was a nice piece of that package, very generous actually, to be able to take out that money and for it to be forgiven. But just imagine that if you had those money set aside, then you wouldn't have had to go through that process. From my understanding, the people who have had to apply for that loan, it has been a process. Everyone that applied for it has not been able to get it, you know, because it was such an overwhelming request for it. You know, so these are things that we want to, going forward, we want to think about these things in terms of position ourselves in a better way, that when a change comes or we need to pivot, that we have those reserves to carry us on. And so I hope this helps you. I hope you can take this information. Again, the book is called Profit First. It's an excellent book. And if you pick this up and start applying it, implementing it, small pieces at a time to your business, I guarantee you, I am a living testimony of how you're going to see the changes in your business finance improve. Okay? Thank you for joining me today. This is Angela from DNA Financial Services, helping you keep more of the money you make. Have a great day.